Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Creative Heart. This week's creative art prop was inspired by the color cube. You can watch my unboxing video, it's on my channel if you want to see. It's the color cube by Sarah Renee Clark, and it's been quite an inspiration. So for this week I actually drew this little card of this beautiful aloe flower, and I really worked with my gouache elements here and paints, and I mixed these beautiful shades that's on this card, and I decided to paint it in my little gouache art journal, and there you have it. I think that turned out rather well. So if you want to see how I paint with gouache and how I created this little exercise in my art journal, then join me now as I turn the camera around and I show you exactly how. Hi everyone, and welcome to my studio. This is another episode of The Creative Heart, and today we are getting into some new tools. But before we get started, I believe it's a good thing in your creative practice just to set some intention and just to connect with your higher self and your spirit self and your true self. So my wish and my prayer today again is for protection of innocent hearts, and I'm thinking of women and children and innocent people that are in conflict areas. My prayers are with them today. May they be safe, may they be healthy, may they be happy, and may they be free from danger. And I pray for protection around them, and to help them find a way out of that situation or to cope with the situation. And I also pray for wisdom and for peace in these areas. That is my intention for today. So I'm going to put my prayer flame to the side with my beautiful crystals and a beautiful hamsa for protection as we get into our beautiful art journal and we practice being present minded with our art. Now, I would have worked in this big journal, but since the arrival of my wonderful tool by Sarah Renee Clark, I have been inspired to use this tool. And if you watched my unboxing video a few days ago, there's a whole story about how this tool came all the way from Australia to South Africa, got lost in the mail, and then I finally found it again. So if you want to watch that episode, it's on my YouTube channel. And then during that unboxing, I drew this beautiful card for today's free art lesson. So that is what we're going to work with. And then yesterday, I was playing around with my gouache in my little new gouache journal, and I thought, you know what, I think it might even be a better idea to just do this little painting in my gouache little journal. I think it's just, more appropriate as far as size and scale is concerned. But while I've got you here, let me show you what I've done previously. Now, as you know, this month is my No Mud, No Lotus, and this is one of my gouache paintings that I did in preparation for this month and just to get into the flow. This I did yesterday with card number 105 with these beautiful ripe figs, and I painted it in my gouache, and I thought, you know what, I think I'm going to do that for our lesson. Why not, hey? If not, why not? This was a beautiful African daisy that bloomed in my garden, and I was just so inspired by its beautiful color that I had to paint it. And these are two more little gouache paintings that I did, inspired by another artist. I just love their flow and composition and color use, and I learned so much from just looking at their artwork and trying to sort of figure out how they use their color, and learned a lot from composition from them. So these exercises are so invaluable in your little art journal. That's where you figure things out, right? And at the back, I just did a color swatch. There's that video as well when I got this little gouache journal and new gouache from Multumedia. Now, unfortunately, it did tear a little bit here, but you know what? These journals weren't expensive. I think I paid 148 or 84 Rand for it, so it's not a deal breaker. So I just decided to fix it with a little bit of masking tape, and then I masked this little block off, only to realize that, you know, it will be better for me to work in this format. So I sized it again to fit this little what do we call that, reference material. There we go. So I'm just going to use these little clamps just to keep my paper down. Otherwise it gets a bit exhausting holding the paper down, so that will be a lot easier. So I'm going to take this big journal out of the way now. There we go. We will play in that journal again on another day. That's the wonderful thing about paper. It's very, very patient, right? Okay, let's put our reference material there. And let me bring forth my gouache tray. Now, this is just a bit of washi tape that I used just to mask off these sections. And I've got some small brushes that I think relates very well to this 15 centimeters by 15 centimeter kind of paper. Otherwise, if the brushes are too big, then you won't be able to sort of get in those little details. All right, so I'm going to put them aside. Now, I'm not a gouache expert. I'm a self-taught artist. I like to meddle with things. So this is my way of meddling. So I just got myself a lovely tray for my gouache, and I dispensed some of the colors on there, and you can see I've worked with this before. Now, if you're new to gouache, gouache is a lot like watercolor. It's just very opaque, so it's also water activated. So one of the first things I like to do before I get into my gouache painting is just to spray all my colors with a bit of water and just rehydrate them a little bit so that they're not so dry. Okay, so let's look at this tool and how it can help us in our art. Because sometimes I think we are inspired. We can look at a picture like this and start analyzing from there and try to figure out all the colors that you see. And I think where this tool from Sarah makes it so useful is you have a basic structure here that you can pre-mix, and you'll pretty much be able to do this painting from these colors. Now, obviously, there are some colors in there like this yellow ochre in the little stems that I will bring in. She does mention that there will be colors that you can add if you want to really have a strong representation, and especially if you want to paint it, you know what I mean. The other idea is just to be inspired by the color story itself and to create something from that. So I think my first challenge for today is going to try to be to mix these colors for myself first, and then we'll get into the painting. So that's exciting. So this is a good exercise in just reading your color and just getting a good idea of what color will be required. Now let me just refresh my white. White is one of the major colors that you will use. In fact, I'm going to put some here for myself, and I'm going to dispense some in my white well as well. Now this is just gouache from Reeves, and it's a Chinese zinc white. So it's actually a bit translucent, but very effective. I do have Winsor & Newton white titanium gouache somewhere, but for some reason I've misplaced it. So it's somewhere, it will show up when I'm ready to find it. Let me just have a sip of my coffee. Right, okay, let's get into this color mixing here. You will need some water, so I've always got some buckets of waters to my left, and I've got a tissue here to just help me clean my brush. Now I'm going to mix this first little green color, and that's called, well, she calls it a pistachio. And on the back of your card, you've got the color, and then you've got a tint which is mixed with white, a lighter version, and a shade that is mixed with black, so that's a deeper version. And she's done that with all 4 of these colors. What I also like is that this has no border around it, so you'll be able to pretty much match it and see if you got all the colors that you require on this little thing. So let's look at it like that. Let's mix this pistachio color, and I think, which green shall I use? I think Viridian is too blue, so I'm going to go with a sap green. Listen, we can always cool it down, right? So I'm just going to, I've dipped my brush in some water, and I just want to activate it here. In fact, I'm going to go to this puddle that I've used before, and there is a little bit of ochre in there as well. Now it's very grayed down. Now one of the ways you can gray it down is to use the opposite color in the color wheel, and with color harmony it's probably this blood orange red that she's used anyway. So I'm going to go for this vermilion kind of red. I know it's quite intense, and let's mix it into this green, and you'll see that the color grays down considerably. It almost looks like the dark version of this, but I think it's still too warm, so let me add a little bit of scarlet. That feels closer to the artichoke with black. Now remember, gouache dries a little bit darker. The light colors dries a bit darker, and the dark colors dries a bit lighter. That's just one of the weird things. Wow, there we go. We've got artichoke. Now pistachio, I'm going to rinse my, well, let me just make my swatch here. I'm going to make a little color swatch here for myself and just say, okay, I've achieved pistachio, or my version of pistachio is going to be this one. Seeing that I've got that white paper there. Now you don't have to make a little color swatch. I mean, I'm just doing it for myself. In this particular exercise, I think it's nice. Okay, let's rinse. Now I'm going to take this zinc white, load it on my brush, and I'm going to bring some of this artichoke color into it. Let's add a drop of clean water to it just to improve the flow there. I feel it's a bit gray, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of this apple green to it. You can see I'm rolling my brush here in the gouache just to unload it from my brush. Yes, that feels pretty much good. So I think I have achieved a nice pistachio. So let's make a little swatch of the pistachio there. Please excuse my doggy crying at the door. He likes to get attention early in the morning. Alrighty, now let's go for these terracotta and blood orange. Now I think the blood orange is pretty much this vermilion. I'm going to mix it here. Let's add some water. Now if you're going to paint something bigger, you can obviously mix these colors in a little jar that you can close up. So that's always nice. And we're going to need a lot of this color. So, okay. It's close, but I feel it needs a dash of this red to it. That looks pretty close. So, I mean, I'm not going to murder myself here with trying to match it exactly because there's a lot of influence on color. The light that you are painting in, your art supplies versus what they use to print with. So don't frustrate yourself too much with trying to mix your colors exactly. I mean, it's always sort of the goal, but you know, do try to keep in mind that you need to just be a bit flexible and allow the color to sort of do its thing. Okay, now I think if I add a bit of green to this, it's going to neutralize it down to a bit of a terracotta. So I'm not going to rinse all of that. I'm going to use what's on my brush here and just bring some of this green in here. And once you've mixed the colors, then you pretty much will have a better idea going into the painting what you need in order to mix it. Now I think I probably used a little bit of a grey there. I could be wrong, but let's go for the medium grey and add it to that. Yes, that pretty much works. Okay, it's a bit too grey, so let's add some orange again. This is the nature of color mixing, people. Let's mix the sage green into it. Then we've got a bit of a bigger paddle over here. A bit more. That feels not too bad to me, so I'm going to use that one. So that's our terracotta. And once you've got it next to you as a color swatch as well, then it's easy to use your own. And then I think this grey is just a nice medium neutral grey, maybe with a dash more of the grey. Where shall I mix this? My tray is rather full. A little bit more darker grey. That feels right. That feels correct. Alrighty then. So there we have our basic color swatches. We've got a pistachio, we've got an artichoke, we've got a terracotta, we've got a blood orange. I do think my blood orange is too bright. I need to add a bit of grey to it. And I've got my grey. So let's adjust that blood orange by adding a dash of grey to it. Just to grey it down a little bit so it's not so bright. That feels a little bit better. Yes, so I've adjusted it there a little bit. That's cool. Alrighty. Okie dokie. So I'm going to let that dry and I'm going to pay attention to my doggy. And then when we come back, we're going to paint this beautiful flower. I think it's an aloe plant flower. So we'll start from there. I'll see you. So I just wanted to show you guys before I get into this painting. This is my Montmartre gouache set. So it's an 18-piece gouache set, and I'm quite impressed with the quality of it. The pigment is really nice, and I like that they are both cool and warm colors. So I'm just going to mix some color again. I realized my palette is too dirty and busy, so I cleared some of these spaces so that I can focus on my mixing and get some color together here that will work for our painting. So this is what you're going to see me do now. So just relax and enjoy the journey with me. I'm going to speed things up a bit so that it doesn't take forever. I'll see you guys. Just let me show you again what it looks like. It comes in tubes like this. You also get them in tubs. You can obviously dispense it like this and work from fresh paint, which sometimes is easier. But I like to have it in a palette because it travels well for me. So that's sort of where we get into it. Okay. So now it will be a little bit easier for me to mix my colors, and I've got some space. So let's see what our background will need is basically almost a mixture of all of it and a bit of a balayage. So let's get mixing. So I'm going to use my vermilion here with a little bit of scarlet, and I'm going to add a little bit of my gray to it. There we go. And it's okay if it's a little bit darker. You can always brighten it up again. We're going to do a wash in the background now anyway, so okay, maybe a little bit more of the scarlet at the top with a little bit of a lighter gray mixed into it. I think that will look pretty. So when you mix your color, you can just roll your brush the whole time just to sort of dispense it from the belly of the brush back onto your palette. And your first layers will be like watercolor, like a tea consistency, very light. Let's get into this green. Where shall I mix the green? I think here close to me. Okay, and we used a little bit of the terracotta color to neutralize that a bit. I think the only annoying thing for me sometimes in mixing colors, I want to sort of go straight for putting my brush into the next color, and then it sort of contaminates a little bit. But that's the joy of gouache. Okay. I do feel like this needs something. Let's add a dash of this Viridian green, just to blue it up a little bit more. This is a good exercise in color mixing. It really trains your eye to see what it's seeing. Right, that feels great. And the gray, let's go, yes, for the dark gray. So I'm going to put some gray here in the corner. Now, let's get into this painting. I want very watery consistency here, and I'm just going to playfully bring the color that I'm seeing in the background working into this orange. And again, I'm not photocopying what I'm seeing. I'm just trying to represent it in my own way. And you'll see that in its watery consistency, it pretty much behaves like watercolor. There we go. I think that's a good start. We have a background that is pretty. So let's just let this flow into each other. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to switch brushes because now we're going to get into our little flowers. Now, before I do that, I do want to just represent this stem of this flower, which is also this pistachio green, so that when we work with the little stems of the individual buds, there's a lot of yellow ochre in there. So let's find some green spaces around these petals, just to talk a little bit about what we see there in the background. And it's mostly relevant here in the center. And the nice thing about gouache is you can paint layers almost like acrylic paint on top of each other. And as you progress with your layers, your consistency of your paint will get a little bit thicker. It really is a great exercise to train your eyes to see the color in your reference material, how dark it is, what shade it is, and so forth. And sometimes the longer you look at your reference material, the more you realize things that you didn't see before. I think that's a good place to start. I see some green here as well. Oh, my Oliver is very demanding today. He wants to play and have a lot of attention. And Mondays is my only studio day, so I did give him attention. I did play with him. But oh my word, little rascal. I'm just adding a little bit of depth to this story. Alrighty then, let's rinse. Okay, so my strategy is going to be to basically work from a very soft, I think I'm going to play with this terracotta color now so that the bright colors can be sort of used last. So I'm going to give most of my petals a wash with this terracotta. So the terracotta was this color, and we added a bit of light gray to it. That feels correct. One of the things I've already learned from this tool, and I think that is just true in art, is it teaches you to find the neutrals and to paint the neutrals and to use the neutrals so that your brighter colors, the colors in your painting that you want to pops a little bit more, because you do have this beautiful foundation of neutrals or neutrals right next to it, that kind of thing. And then also the directionality of your brush strokes plays a very big role. and constantly looking at your reference material. I'm just going to pick up some of that color. I don't want it to be too thick. Just trying to see what's there behind that. So this initial stage is what we will refer to as color blocking. And I think to have a nice harmonized background can be very helpful. And also to zone these petals, leaving some space maybe between them. Just so that you can identify them. Okay. Okay, I need to mix a little bit more of this. What was this color called? Terracotta. Yes, terracotta. So adding a bit of grey to it. There we go. This mixture is a little bit cooler than my first one, you can see. That's okay. I think it's okay. Now in my reference I see a beautiful pink there in the background. Pink with a little bit of coral. So I'm just adding a bit of the vermilion to it. So let's just work that in. Oh, it's still about there. Now I'm seeing this yellow ochreish color here, but there's a lot of green to it, so let's mix some green into it. Let's use our pistachio. Just to yellow this up a little bit. I see some here. I've given it 5 minutes to dry. So now I can assess what I have as a foundation and build upon it. So to define this a bit better, I think we need better or more depth, more contrast. So that is what I'm going to work on now, and also a bit more vibrancy. So I think the beautiful vibrant reds that we have here can now come forward, albeit not everywhere. So I think I'm reading the brightest bit in hue that I want to bring in now. So let's get a nice mixture of our vermilion in its pure color. I'm gonna add a little bit of this scarlet to it just to make it a little bit more corally. And I'm working from the top down to the bottom, just looking for places where this bright, okay, we do need a little bit of white with it. So let me come over here. My white is stiffened a little bit. So you'll see the white immediately makes it a little bit more opaque, even though this is a mixing white or a zinc white. But remember, the lighter colors dries a little bit darker. And if you want to see a little bit more vibrancy to it, you can always go to your yellow and add a bit of yellow to it. Yellow is definitely also a way to brighten up a color. Okay. Coming back to this, that feels a little bit more correct to me. And I think what will help is, I think I'm going to do another wash on the background to sort of just make that a little bit less vibrant, because it's definitely darker in the background. The actual flowers are brighter. And then I'm going to work on softer tints or highlights of these colors to really help develop the form and shape of these petals. And I'm going to leave these very dark low lights for last, because I don't want to disturb those lines again. So that's sort of going to be my strategy going forward. But I'm going to fast forward it for you so that you can see how we get there. Awesome, I think I'm done. Listen, I always remind people that you are not a printer, and even though I'm using this as a reference material, I'm not trying to copy the image to the point where it feels like I have replicated a print of the original. I just want to capture the light and the mood, and I feel that I have achieved exactly that with this little painting. So now, this is the exciting part. We can take off the washi tape. I must say, I prefer washi tape to masking tape because it's less sticky. There is less chance of tearing your paper, but I always recommend that you heat up your tape before removing it. There you go. And there's something very satisfying about removing tape that you use to protect your borders, because now you also have this beautiful clean edge that helps to define or confine your exercise and your painting. And I actually think we did very well, considering this is our mixing tones. I think we nailed it quite well, and when we bring this into our painting, we can definitely see all of these shades playing a role, and I'm quite happy with that. Even the grays are in there. So that helps to really lift the vibrancy. So I took a bit of artistic license because I'm seeing a little bit of blues and pinks that I felt was going to complement my little painting. So what remains is the date. And I think today is the 6th of May. So let's add a 0605. 24. Sometimes I have to count the months because I'm not always sure exactly where I am. So this yellow tape is going to stay because it's actually there to keep my little journal strong. But that's my exercise for the day. I promised you guys card number 113, this beautiful aloe flowers, and we worked with this wonderful color scheme that is provided here by Sarah. Do check out her website, beautiful color cubes, and this is just such an amazing tool to use in your art. I really feel that I've learned something and I've achieved something today. So I really like where we are in our painting. So if you're new to my channel, remember to hit that subscribe button and the like button. And I do these little free art classes every Monday for your perusal so that you can have something to focus on, or maybe gain some inspiration or insight into a medium that will inspire you to have a creative practice too. So I will see you guys again next week for another episode of The Creative Heart. Bye-bye for now. And there we have it, our beautiful little painting in our art journal, inspired by Sarah Renee Clark.